Hello, everyone. Mark Weissy here with Maple Capital Partners, and myself and my partner Gonzalo are going to talk to you today about goal setting. This is a super relevant topic, being that it's the beginning of January, and many of us are taking stock of all that we've accomplished over the past year, everything that's happened to us over the past year, as well as what are our goals going forward. Some people call this New Year's resolutions. For us, it's more about what do we want our life to look like a year from now. And so we're going to take you through a little bit about how we set that process up, which is it's a ritual that we follow every year, and also how we achieve those goals. So I'll start by laying out where we put together our goals and when. So we typically prefer to choose a quiet place that's free of activity, not a busy place, but free of distractions, basically. We want a clear head when we approach this goal setting. We're going to have to do a lot of deep inner work and mental, a lot of thinking to put together these goals and these objectives for our life. So we definitely don't want a busy area. We want to choose a time of day that we're going to be clear-headed and free of distraction as well. For us, that means in the morning, before the day's stresses and varying competing needs for our time start to interact. So early in the morning, a quiet place. We also prefer to do this exercise using a pencil and a piece of paper. We know that it's maybe a little bit old school to use a piece of paper and a pencil, but we think that having something tangible there for you to write out is going to be much more meaningful as you approach these goals. So we go ahead and the first thing that we do is we take stock of all that we've accomplished in the prior year. We try to celebrate our successes. It's very common for us as human beings and entrepreneurs to accomplish something and then immediately look to the next thing, the greater goal, and really not take the sufficient time to celebrate our wins. And this is, something that we want to do and be cognizant of. Not only the successes, but also the learning lessons. I won't call them failures. Some people call them failures, but Rod Cleef, actually, somebody that we look to as a mentor, actually calls them seminars. And we really like that language. And language, after all, matters. So looking back at these learning lessons, these seminars, we realize the obstacles that we've overcome. And by realizing all that we've overcome in terms of the adversity, we're able to develop a kind of steel reserve inside of us, a resilience, so that when we face future obstacles, we have those to look back upon and say, okay, if we overcame those, we can overcome this. In addition to that, it shows us our ability to tolerate pain. After all, we look at stress as kind of a rubber band. And, as you stretch that rubber band of stress, you can put up with increasingly large loads of future stress or be able to make decisions, even under times of stress. So that's something really important for us. We'll reflect on successes as well as learning lessons at the beginning of the exercise. And then once we do that, we're ready to get started in building our goals going forward. So first thing when we do when we're putting together our list of goals is really try to compartmentalize our life. That is, we try to break out the different aspects of our life into buckets. And that'll help us really determine, how do we envision success in these different buckets. Some buckets that we've used in the past that may be useful to you are personal, relationship, financial, health, professional, spiritual, family. Now you can feel free to play around with those, add your own. There are tons that you can probably, tons of different ways that you can separate your life. But those buckets are going to become the areas you want to focus on in this next step, which is basically envisioning what success looks like in each of those buckets. So for each of those, there should be no more than a handful of bullets as far as the different things that you want to accomplish in that particular bucket. So for health, for example, I might say that I want to lower my BMI, which is a measure of body mass index. That's body fat, basically. I want to lower that by 5% over the course of the year, as well as another bullet might be, I want to run 5 miles in under 40 minutes. So again, you're going to create different bullets for those buckets that are going to really help you define what is success to you in 1 year's time. This step is really, really critical. It's really critical that you connect with those objectives. It's vital, in fact, because this isn't simply a list of wants. These should be things that you absolutely need. These are burning desires. These are things that you seek because they're deeply connected to who you are and where you want your life to be in a year's time. They're going to become the reason why you get up early, why you stay up late, why you persist through tough times and in the face of obstacles. So you want to make sure that you connect with them emotionally. For each of these objectives, and I'm not going to call them goals yet, because at this point we haven't created goals. They're just objectives. We're going to answer two questions. Those questions are going to be, why is it an absolute must to achieve that objective? And the second question is, what will happen if you fail to achieve this objective? The reason we're answering these questions is simple, and it dates back to what I was saying earlier, which is you want to connect those objectives to emotions. So by envisioning and kind of visualizing why it's an absolute must, what it means to you, what it means to your family, as well as what will happen if you fail to achieve those successes, that's going to create some emotionality behind, if that's a word, behind those goals. And it should be noted here that this is using a little bit of the brain's power to kind of embody and manifest the subconscious. So when you have an emotion behind something that you want, your brain is going to figure out a way to achieve that, basically. That's why it's really important. So once you've answered those two questions for each objective, you're going to go ahead and refine those objectives into goals. How we're going to do that is using the SMART framework. So SMART, for any people that haven't heard of it, many of us probably have, is basically specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. We're going to go through each of those letters in that acronym and just define what that actually means in terms of goal setting. So in terms of S in SMART, that's specific. It's really important that any objective or any goal that you create is specific. That is, it's not just some vague objective. It's too broad to define. For health, for example, a vague example might be, I want to get back in shape. Well, what does that really mean? One person's definition of back in shape might be completely different than yours or mine. So that tells me nothing about what it actually means to reach that goal. What does that goal actually look like? An example of a specific goal might be, I want to improve my cardiovascular health by jogging every day. So that's much more specific. I have an actual activity that I'm going to pursue in order to reach that goal. So the next letter is M, which is measurable. Measurable, it goes back to the old saying of, if it's not measurable, it's not manageable, or however the saying goes. But that's definitely true in goal setting. If it's not measurable, you can't manage it. And so you have to be able to quantify this. In the example that I gave before, in terms of jogging every day, you might add to that, I want to improve my cardiovascular health through jogging every day. You might say, I want to jog at least 1 mile every day on average. So that's specific and it's measurable now, because we know if we don't jog on average 1 mile a day, doesn't mean every day, but on average 1 mile a day, then we haven't reached our goal. The next letter is A for achievable or attainable. Now, it's really important that we set achievable goals, because something too far outside the realm of possibility is just going to be disregarded by your brain. Basically, it's not going to allow you to persist through the tough times because you know that you're ultimately not going to be able to achieve it in your heart. Now, I don't want to delve too much into the secret or, some of this more metaphysical stuff, but basically the brain is a very complex piece of machinery. It's extremely economical in its allocation of resources. And so when you tell it something that it knows is false, or it knows is not consistent with you and what your ability to do, then it's going to disregard that. It's not going to allocate resources to that. So it's basically going to say, why waste my time? So using the last example, I can say that on my fitness level, jogging 1 mile a day is absolutely achievable. So my brain, therefore, will not disregard it. It is a realistic goal for me. Now, if I had said something like, I want to come first in the Boston Marathon, I've never run a marathon. I don't train for marathons. So that might be very, very difficult, if not impossible, in a year's time. Now, it's up to you individually to say what's achievable, what's not. But I think everybody kind of more or less knows when they set goals what's achievable and what's outside the realm of reality. So the next letter in the SMART acronym is relevant. The annual goal has to be relevant to you. It has to be aligned with your vision of yourself, your long-term goals, how you want your life to look. It has to be consistent with your values. If those aren't true, then again, your brain's just going to disregard it. Tony Robbins has a quote that says, the strongest force in human personality is the need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves. And that's definitely true when we're creating goals. We think that creating goals have to be relevant, or else, again, you're just not going to follow through when you have to. Now, T, which is the last letter of the SMART acronym, stands for time bound. To get back to the example earlier, we said, I want to improve my cardiovascular health through jogging at least 1 mile on average every day. To that, we would add for an entire year. So this sets the endpoint for when we're going to be able to attain that goal, and it creates some certainty around what that definition of success looks like. So we know that a year from now, if we've jogged on average 1 mile a day, we've achieved that goal. So for those of us that are multifamily investors and we're looking to make more offers next year, for example, having a goal that's time bound might look something like, I want to make 4 offers every month for the next year. This would be a definite improvement on the goal of saying I want to make more offers. It's concrete and has some urgency to it. So that rounds out the SMART acronym. We think this is a tremendously useful framework to create your goals and should be a really good barometer of whether or not your goals are useful. The last thing we're going to do is an exercise that we're going to add to these goals that we've just created, which is called goal setting to the now, or goal setting to the present. And basically what it does is it takes your 1-year goal and it walks it back to today. And it breaks that down into milestones that are achievable in their own right. So for example, our cadence that we use when we're doing the goal setting to now is we walk back the 1-year goal to a 6-month goal, and then a 3-month goal, and then a 1-month goal, and then a 1-week goal, tomorrow goal, and then what we have to get done today. And again, all of these are enabling us and really empowering us to reach the next goal. And by checking those off the list, it builds the confidence to be able to look forward and say, what's next on my list of milestones here? So if, for example, I wanted to lose 30 pounds over the course of the year, I might say that in 6 months, I want to have lost 15 pounds. And then in a quarter from now, I want to have lost 5 pounds. And then a month from now, I want to say I've been to the gym at least 10 times. And then a week from now, maybe I've been to the gym twice. And then tomorrow, I want to go to the gym. And then today, I want to join a gym. So that's a very real world example of how the goal setting to now prompts you to take immediate action towards that goal. It makes your goals tangible, and it gives you action steps to get you started right away. So now recap. We've started with big picture objectives and why they matter to us. Those big picture objectives are what success looks like to us 1 year from now in different aspects of our life. It's important, again, that we connect those aspects and those goals to our emotionality, to our emotions, because we want to be able to power through the tough times that we'll inevitably encounter along the way. We've refined those into SMART goals, and then we've walked those goals back to the present using the goal setting to now technique. This is now a solid plan, and if it's followed, it's going to help us reach that goal by the end of the year. Now I want to bring up a point, which is about goal setting overall. Goal setting isn't just an exercise that you do at the beginning of the year and then you file away in a drawer somewhere. It's something that you're constantly looking at, refining, and reviewing consistently. And only in viewing it consistently, in our case, we try to look at our goals a couple of times a week in order to revisit them. And it gets us excited by looking at them as we check off different aspects of those goals. We have to ensure that our daily habits are aligned with those goals as well. And then by looking at them regularly, it forces us to re-examine whether or not we're living a life that's consistent with those goals and whether our habits reflect that. An analogy that some of you may have heard of is that of a pilot. So when a pilot starts off going from New York to Los Angeles, for example, they're constantly, although they have a great flight plan, they're constantly recalibrating themselves and always kind of revising and reviewing where they are on that flight plan. So, for example, if you were to leave from New York and be 1 degree off and not recalibrate, you would no longer land in Los Angeles. You might be in a different state entirely. And that's a really great analogy for goal setting, because as you start on this path of achieving your goals, you're going to get off track. It's natural. Life comes up, things happen. There are competing wants for your time. And so you're going to have to recalibrate yourself. You're going to have to tweak certain things about your life in order to get back on track and get back on your flight plan. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to Gonzalo, who's going to talk about some of the tips that he uses to be able to, now that we have a goal and a list of goals, to be able to hit those goals and empower yourself to take the action that's necessary to do so.
Hello, folks. This is Gonzalo. Mark went into some great depth in the previous video on exactly the steps needed to set goals and some great techniques on that. I'm going to be discussing kind of the process that I use to set my goals, utilizing a lot of stuff that he talked about to set goals, tasks, and create good habits. All three to me are very dependent on each other in order to make sure you're successful. The first one I'm going to be discussing just the softwares that I use to stay on track. I'm going to list a couple of personal and business short and long-term goals that I have and I want to try to accomplish this year. I try to keep things very simple. I don't like to overcomplicate things by including too many different types of technologies that I need to track. I feel this creates just, more distraction for me. I'm the type of person that needs silence, needs no distractions, really focus on important tasks. So this helps me. The softwares that I use is a calendar, an online calendar. I use Google Calendar. I suggest you use some kind of calendar in order for you to time block the items that you're going to be trying to do on a weekly basis in order for you to reach these goals that you set for yourself in January. Microsoft OneNote, this is the online electronic platform that I use to keep track of all my notes. Now, I still use a written notepad like this to take notes with a pencil. I still use this, but I kind of always fall back on the OneNote. It's a very good searchable software. It sets reminders for me, and I can easily organize everything, all my calls and everything. So that's been very key in for me to keeping things organized. The next one is our CRM system, which is Customer Relationship Management System. We use HubSpot for that, and it's been just monumental in making sure we track notes and we track discussions of all the vendors, all the partners, all the broker relationships that we're building go in the CRM system in order for us to look back on previous conversations. Now, short-term goals that I have for this year, for me is very simple. I want to try to read 2 books per quarter, very high quality books. Reread books. That's also a thing that I'm trying to do this year is rereading older books that have a lot of value and content into it. Now, I read it takes me about 1 minute to read 1 page in a typical book. So in a typical 304-page book, I need about 6 hours to finish that book. That being said, in a 6-week period, which is half a quarter, I need to read 6 hours, 1 hour a week. Again, I time blocked it into my calendar, 2 30-minute slots per week to make sure I read 1 hour a week in order to hit that goal of reading at least 1 book, 1.5 months equals to 2 books per quarter. Now, I know some of you might say 1 hour a week, big deal, it's not a lot, but as a busy guy with family, kids, a lot of fire drills coming up, it can be something that just gets put on the back burner. By having it on my calendar time block, I know I'm going to reach that short-term goal of reading 2 books per quarter. I want to meditate starting this year. I'm going to add 2 time blocks per week to try to get that done. On the business side, I want to underwrite 3 deals a week on my calendar. I want to develop and nurture further our broker relationships. Again, that's on my calendar, and usually those very high value, very important tasks go in the morning. So I have them mostly in the morning with lower tier tasks in the afternoon. Some of my long-term goals is reaching my financial freedom number within 2 years. And this is all really related to real estate investing, savings, and investing in cash flowing assets such as real estate, or it could be any other type of asset. I like to reflect how I'm doing, how I'm getting close to hitting my number on a quarterly basis. So I suggest if you have that financial freedom number, reflect back on a quarterly basis, see how you're doing to reaching that number that you set in place. For me, it's getting into limited partner positions in real estate deals. It's getting into general partner positions in real estate deals, and finding cash flowing properties to help me meet that number. The next one is very important to us in the business is finding deals and closing on good high quality commercial multifamily assets in the Southeast, which is our target market. This is all great related to our short-term goal of underwriting deals and nurturing and developing further broker relationships, because as we nurture broker relationships, we'll start seeing better deal flow coming from them. And eventually that's going to lead to us really finding a good high quality deal that meets our metrics, and we find a deal and close on a deal. So the short-term goals really are related to the long-term goals for us. Now, I hope you guys took some very high-quality information from this video. At the very least, make sure you have a calendar and make sure you have a good online note-taking system. And the CRM, look into that. I guarantee you it's going to pay dividends for you. So thank you very much, and we wish you guys a lot of luck on your goals for this year.